Jisoo Park loved the view from her workstation at Haven Point Research Center. The 3 moons of the colony world hung like pearls in the pink morning sky, visible through the tall glass windows that lined the east wall. She'd only been stationed at this remote outpost for 6 months, but the 18-year-old had already proven herself as one of the most talented human researchers in the facility. Another day serving as the bridge between species, she said to herself, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear as she activated her workstation. Haven Point was Earth's proud achievement, a successful colony and research hub where humans worked alongside 23 alien species. The facility specialized in comparative biology, with researchers from across the galaxy, studying the unique adaptations that had evolved on different worlds. Jisoo's particular talent was in translation and data organization, making her invaluable. To the research teams, "Morning, Jisoo," called out her colleague Hana from across the lab. "Did you hear the Confederacy delegation is visiting today? They're inspecting all Earth outposts this quarter." Jisoo nodded, feeling a flutter of nervousness. The Galactic Confederacy had reluctantly welcomed Earth into its ranks 50 years ago, but tensions remained. Humans were still seen as newcomers, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous despite their relatively simple technology. By midday, the facility hummed with activity as the Confederacy officials moved through the research center. Jisoo kept her head down, focusing on organizing the latest batch of research data. When her system pinged with a notification, she barely looked up as she accepted the incoming file transfer. "That's strange," she muttered, noticing unfamiliar encryption on the files that had just arrived in her system. She tapped through several screens trying to identify the source. "This doesn't look like the usual research protocols." Unknown to Jisoo, she had just received a misdirected packet of classified Confederacy military files, information about weapon systems being developed, specifically to target human physiology. The files had been accidentally routed to her station due to a simple coding error by a nervous Confederacy technician. As Jisoo's fingers flew across the interface, attempting to make sense of what she was seeing, alarms began to sound throughout the facility. "Security breach in Sector 4, announced the station AI. "All personnel remain at stations for identification." Jisoo froze, realizing she was in Sector 4. The doors to the lab hissed open, and 3 figures entered. 2 Confederacy officials, and between them, a tall, grey-skinned being with 4 arms and a ridge of small spines running from the crown of his head down his back. "That's the terminal," one official said, pointing at Jisoo's workstation. The grey-skinned being stepped forward. This was Dax, a mercenary from the Vral species, hired by the Confederacy for security during sensitive operations. The Vral were known for their efficiency and their complete lack of empathy, perfect for jobs that required emotional detachment. "Human," Dax said, his voice a low rumble through the translator. "You have accessed restricted files. Explain." Jisoo raised her hands slowly. "There's been a mistake. I received an automatic transfer. I didn't request any files." One of the officials checked a device in his hand. "The human is correct. It appears to be a routing error." Relief washed over Jisoo's face. "See? Just a misunderstanding. I can delete the files right away." She reached toward her terminal, but Dax misinterpreted the movement. To the Vral, any sudden motion during a security incident was considered a threat. Without hesitation, he drew his weapon, a small energy pistol, and fired a single pulse directly at Jisoo's chest. The shot hit her with barely a sound. Jisoo looked down in confusion at the small, smoldering hole in her blue research uniform. Her eyes widened in shock as she slumped forward onto her workstation. "Containment achieved," Dax stated flatly. The lab erupted in chaos. Hana screamed. From across the room, other researchers, human and alien alike, backed away in horror. "What have you done?" the senior Confederacy official hissed at Dax. The threat was neutralized. Dax showed no reaction. The human made an unexpected movement after accessing classified materials. Standard security protocol was followed. Within hours, the incident was reported to Earth. Security footage showed clearly that Jisoo had made no threatening moves. She had simply reached to delete the files as instructed. The Confederacy, however, stood by their mercenaries' actions. While regrettable, the incident was handled according to established security protocols, read the official statement. The Confederacy extends its condolences and offers compensation of 50,000 universal credits to the family of the deceased. Along with the statement came a waiver. Earth was expected to sign it, acknowledging the matter as closed and agreeing not to pursue further action. On Earth, the footage of Jisoo's death spread like wildfire. People watched in horror as a young woman, barely an adult, was killed for a simple misunderstanding. Jisoo had been bright, dedicated, with her whole life ahead of her. The offered compensation was insultingly small, barely enough to cover the cost of returning her body to Earth. In the highest levels of Earth government, officials gathered to discuss the response. The Confederacy had clearly expected them to accept the token apology and move on. After all, what could Earth, a relatively minor power in galactic politics, do against the might of the Confederacy? They didn't understand that humans value life differently. To the Confederacy, Jisoo Park was one insignificant being among trillions. To Earth, she was a daughter, a friend, a brilliant young woman with dreams and potential. Her life mattered. Every human life mattered, and the Galactic Confederacy was about to learn exactly what that meant. The footage of Jisoo's death reached Earth just 3 days after the incident. Unlike the sanitized report the Confederacy had sent through official channels, this was raw security footage leaked by a sympathetic alien researcher at Haven Point who believed humans deserved to know the truth. People across Earth watched in stunned silence as the young woman was gunned down for nothing more than reaching toward her keyboard. The video spread across every news network and social platform. Within hours, millions had seen Jisoo's final moments. Outside, the Park family home in New Seoul, hundreds gathered with candles despite the pouring rain. Jisoo's parents stood at their doorway, faces drawn with grief as neighbors and strangers alike came to show support. Her father clutched a framed photo of his daughter on her first day at the Space Academy, her smile bright with hope and promise. She just wanted to help build bridges between worlds, he told reporters, his voice breaking. That's all she ever wanted. The streets of major cities filled with protesters. In London, Tokyo, Nairobi, and Buenos Aires, people marched with signs bearing Jisoo's face and the words "Her life mattered." What had begun as mourning was quickly becoming a unified global demand for action. At United Earth headquarters in Geneva, the World Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all Earth nations sat in tense silence as Admiral Do-hyun, a stern-faced man with silver at his temples, stood to address them. The Confederacy would have us believe that Jisoo Park's death was an unfortunate but necessary security measure, he said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. I am here to tell you that is a lie. Do-hyun had spent the last 20 years as head of Earth's United Defense Forces. Though Earth had officially maintained only a small defensive military since joining the galactic community, those who knew Do-hyun understood he was not a man who left things to chance. He gestured, and holographic displays appeared before each council member. Our analysis of the footage shows that at no point was Jisoo Park a threat. The virile mercenary Dax fired his weapon 1.4 seconds after she began to comply with instructions. This was not a mistake. It was an execution. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. And it is not an isolated incident, Do-hyun continued. In the past decade alone, 17 humans have been killed by Confederacy forces in what they deemed security actions. In each case, Earth was offered minimal compensation and expected to move on. The Admiral's eyes swept the room, meeting the gaze of each council representative. I submit to you that the Confederacy sees us as expendable. They believe we will continue to accept these losses because we have no choice, because we are too weak to demand better. World Council President Ana Ribeiro stood, her face set with determination. What are you suggesting, Admiral? Do-hyun straightened to his full height. That we show them exactly how wrong they are. For the next 6 hours, the World Council remained in closed session. Security around the building was tripled, and the world waited anxiously for news of Earth's response. When the council doors finally opened, President Ribeiro emerged flanked by Admiral Do Hyun and representatives from Earth's largest nations. Together they approached the bank of cameras. "Today the nations of Earth speak with one voice," Ribeiro announced. "The killing of Jisoo Park was not a security incident, it was a crime, and it will not go unanswered." She paused, her expression solemn. "Effective immediately, Earth is mobilizing the United Defense Forces. We are deploying 500,000 soldiers with full fleet support to Confederacy space. Their mission is clear: to bring Jisoo Park's killer to justice and to ensure that no human life is ever again treated with such disregard." The announcement sent shockwaves across the planet and beyond. Earth had never before assembled such a massive military force. Many citizens were shocked to learn that Earth even had the capacity for such deployment. In the Galactic Confederacy's central chambers on the world of Actis Prime, the Earth ambassador delivered the announcement personally. The Confederacy representatives received the news first with disbelief, then with barely concealed amusement. "Surely this is diplomatic theatre," said High Minister Graal of the Tanari species, his translucent skin flushing blue with condescension. "Earth cannot seriously intend to challenge the Confederacy militarily over a single security incident." "My government has never been more serious," the Earth ambassador replied. 500,000 soldiers. Remember that number. In the privacy of their chambers, the Confederacy leadership laughed openly at what they saw as human foolishness. Even if they somehow managed to gather 500,000 fighters and their entire military force is less than that, what exactly do they plan to do with them? Asked Minister Zoll. "Their ships cannot match our speed or firepower. Their weapons are generations behind ours." "Let them come," High Minister Graal decided. "When they see the true might of the Confederacy, perhaps they will finally learn their place in the galactic order." What the Confederacy leaders didn't know, what almost no one outside a select few on Earth knew, was that Admiral Do Hyun and his predecessors had been preparing for this moment since humanity's first contact with alien life. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, away from prying eyes and orbital scans, Earth had built and hidden a fleet of warships using reverse-engineered alien technology. In bunkers under the oceans and inside hollowed-out mountains, soldiers had trained with advanced weapons and combat systems far beyond what Earth publicly acknowledged possessing. For decades, Earth had maintained the appearance of a relatively primitive newcomer to galactic politics, while secretly preparing for the day when humanity would need to stand its ground. As the first transport ships began lifting from Earth's surface, carrying the initial waves of the 500,000 soldiers, Admiral Do Hyun stood at the main viewport of his command ship in lunar orbit. He watched the blue planet below, thinking of Jisoo Park and all the others who had been dismissed as insignificant by the Confederacy. "They're about to learn," he said quietly to himself, "that to us every single human life holds weight beyond measure." The largest military force in human history was on the move. The Confederacy had no idea what was coming. The Confederacy border station outpost Krell floated in the emptiness of space, its sensor arrays constantly scanning for approaching vessels. For centuries, this had been a quiet posting. The nearby star systems contained little of value, and traffic was minimal. The station's commander, a veteran Tanari named Velk, had spent 15 boring years at this outpost without a single notable incident. That changed in an instant. A blinding flash of light erupted less than 10,000 kilometers from the station, far too close for comfort. Alarms blared across the command center as the sensors struggled to make sense of what they were detecting. "Report," Velk demanded, his translucent skin pulsing with agitation. "Unknown energy signature, Commander," the sensor officer replied. Frantically working controls. It's a fleet, multiple vessels. They weren't there a moment ago." "Impossible," Velk snapped. "Nothing can bypass our detection grid. Check for sensor malfunctions." "Sensors functioning normally, sir. I'm counting over 200 ships, no 300, still more appearing." On the main view screen, ships continued to materialize out of nowhere. Sleek, dark vessels unlike anything in Confederacy records. They moved with precision, quickly forming a battle formation. "Confederacy Outpost Krell," came a transmission in perfect galactic standard. This is General Sunmi of the United Earth Defense Force. Your station is now under our control. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." Velk stared at the screen in disbelief. Humans? Here? How had they arrived without using the established jump points, and in such numbers? "Open a channel," he ordered, trying to maintain his composure. "General Sunmi, this is an unprovoked act of aggression against the Confederacy. Withdraw immediately, or—" His words died as the station's power system suddenly failed. Emergency lighting flickered on, but weapons, shields, and communications were dead. "Sir," his second-in-command whispered, "they've somehow remotely disabled our systems." Through the viewport, Velk watched as small craft detached from the Earth vessels heading toward the station. Within minutes, armored human soldiers were moving through the halls of Outpost Krell, securing control without firing a single shot. The impossibility of what had just happened stunned the Confederacy leadership when the reports came in. Earth. Ships had simultaneously appeared at 27 border outposts across Confederacy space, using some form of jump technology that bypassed all known detection methods. Each station had been neutralized without casualties, but this was just the beginning. General Sunmi stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, studying the holographic display of Confederacy space. At 52, she was a legend among Earth's military, the architect of strategy during the unification wars that had finally brought Earth's nations together. Her salt-and-pepper hair was cut short for practicality, and the lines around her eyes spoke of decades making impossible decisions. "All border stations secured, General," reported her aide. "Confederacy communications are in disarray. They still have no idea of our full capabilities." Sunmi nodded. "Begin Phase 2, target the Vril homeworld." The order rippled through the fleet. Within hours, 500 Earth vessels jumped into orbit around Vralis, the grey-green homeworld of the mercenary species that had produced Dax, Jisu's killer. Unlike the border stations, the Vril were ready for a fight. Their orbital defense. Platforms opened fire as soon as the Earth fleet appeared. Energy weapons lashed out, catching several human ships and causing significant damage. "As expected," Sunmi said calmly as her ship shuddered from a near miss. "The Vril are warriors. They won't surrender without a demonstration." She opened a channel to the fleet. "Deploy ground forces. Remember your training. The Vril respect strength above all." Drop ships streaked through the atmosphere of Vralis, each carrying 100 soldiers from Earth. The Confederacy had expected Earth troops to be poorly equipped, untrained in alien environments and easy to overwhelm. They discovered their error quickly. Human soldiers emerged wearing advanced combat suits that adapted to Vralis's higher gravity and toxic atmosphere. They moved with surprising speed, using tactics that confused the Vril defenders, who were used to straightforward confrontation. Int. The capital city of Grath, Lieutenant Kai and his platoon pushed toward the Central Military Command. The spindly towers of Vril architecture loomed above them, and the purple sky flashed with weapons fire. "They're setting up an ambush at the next junction," Kai told his soldiers, checking the readings from the tiny drones they'd released ahead of their advance. Standard Vril tactics. They always attack from above and below simultaneously. The platoon split into 3 teams. When the Vril forces sprang their trap, they found only empty air where they expected to find humans. Instead, Kai's soldiers attacked from unexpected angles, using grappling systems and jetpacks to maneuver in 3 dimensions in ways the Vril hadn't anticipated. "Humans," snarled a captured Vril commander hours later. "How did you develop such technology without the Confederacy knowing?" Kai smiled grimly behind his helmet. "We've been preparing for a long time, ever since we learned how the galaxy really views us." In the Confederacy's central chambers on Actis Prime, panic was spreading. Reports flooded in from across their territory. Human forces were bypassing primary defenses, appearing where they shouldn't be able to go, and displaying fighting capabilities far beyond what any intelligence had suggested. "How is this possible?" demanded High Minister Graal, his skin now pulsing an anxious yellow. "They were nothing. A minor species with barely functional spacecraft." Admiral Zeth, the Confederacy's senior military commander, looked grim. "It appears they have been deceiving us, for decades perhaps. But why? Another minister asked. Why maintain the illusion of technological inferiority? Because, Zeth replied slowly, they were preparing for war while we thought them incapable of it. The holographic display in the center of the chamber updated with new information. The virile homeworld had fallen in less than 12 hours. The mercenary guilds, including the one that had employed Dax, were now under Earth control. They're not. Killing indiscriminately, Zeth noted, studying the reports. They're taking control of key infrastructure, communications, and military assets. This is a precisely targeted operation. Targeted at what? Graal demanded. The answer came from Earth itself. Admiral Do-hyun's face appeared on every communication channel across Confederacy space, a broadcast that somehow bypassed all attempts to block it. People of the Galactic Confederacy, he said, his voice calm and measured. We have one objective: justice for Jisoo Park and all humans who have been treated as expendable. Surrender the mercenary Dax and those who ordered him to fire. Acknowledge that human lives have value equal to any species in the galaxy. Do this, and our forces will withdraw without further conflict. The message was simple, yet the implications shook the foundations of the Confederacy's understanding of humanity. Oni. The bridge of her flagship, General Sunmi watched as the Confederacy scrambled to respond. She had known this day would come eventually, had helped plan for it for years. Humans had played the part of the humble newcomers, hiding their true capabilities, absorbing technology, and learning about their potential adversaries. The Vral. Central database is secured, reported her communications officer. We're extracting information on Dax's whereabouts and his chain of command. Sunmi nodded, and the defensive capabilities of the remaining Confederate worlds, downloading now. They severely underestimated what we could accomplish. The general allowed herself a small smile. The Confederacy had never bothered to truly understand humans, had never recognized the fierce determination that drove Earth's quiet preparations. They didn't understand that humans, when united by a common cause, were capable of extraordinary things, and they certainly hadn't understood what it meant when 500,000 soldiers left their homes, their families, and their planet, all to seek justice for a single human life. Prepare the fleet for the next jump, Sunmi ordered. The Confederacy is about to learn exactly who they've been dismissing all these years. Commander Taeho studied the holographic model of Nexus 9 floating above the briefing table. The space station was massive, a sprawling artificial world, housing over 2 million beings from dozens of species. Its curved, segmented structure resembled a giant metal spiral, rotating slowly to generate gravity in its outer rings, while the central hub remained in zero-G. Somewhere in this maze, Taeho said, his voice quiet but intense, is the mercenary who killed Jisoo Park. The 6 members of his team watched silently. They were Earth's best, ghost operatives who had trained for years in stealth, infiltration, and extraction. Each had volunteered instantly when asked to hunt down Dax. Intel confirms he arrived 3 days ago, continued Taeho, zooming in on a section of the station's mid-levels. He's being protected by high-ranking Confederate officials in the diplomatic quarter. Security is heavy, and they're expecting us. Yuna, the team's tech specialist, raised an eyebrow. They know we're coming specifically for him? They know we're coming for someone, Taeho clarified. Our invasion has them scrambling to protect their VIPs. They've figured out we're targeting individuals, not just taking territory. He gestured, and the hologram shifted to show security checkpoints. Throughout the station's levels, standard Confederate protocols enhanced by private security. Their biggest advantage is that Nexus 9 is still technically neutral territory. We can't just storm in with a full military force without risking civilian casualties. Jin, the weapons. Expert leaned forward. So we go in quiet, Taeho nodded. We go in quiet. While General Sunmi's forces engaged the Confederate fleet in the Arcturian system, drawing attention and resources away from Nexus 9, Taeho's team approached the station in a small, unmarked transport. Their ship was registered as a supply vessel, one of hundreds that came and went from the station daily. Nexus Control, this is Transport Horizon requesting docking clearance, Yuna said, her voice altered to sound like a century trader through their communication system. "Transport Horizon, stand by for inspection," came the reply. "Security protocols are elevated due to current hostilities." Tejo gave a slight nod to Yuna. They had anticipated this. The team sat calmly as their ship was scanned, their false credentials checked against the station's database. "Transport Horizon, you are cleared for docking at Bay 47. Once inside the massive docking bay, the team moved with practiced precision. They blended with the crowds of dock workers, traders, and station residents, their appearances subtly altered to avoid detection. Unlike the direct approach of the main Earth forces, Tejo's team relied on stealth and intelligence. "Security, 'tis heavier than expected," Jin murmured into his communicator as he passed a patrol of armored guards. "They've doubled the presence in the public areas." "That means they're stretched thin elsewhere," Tejo replied. "Proceed to Checkpoint Alpha." The team split up, each taking different routes through the station's labyrinthine corridors and transit tubes. Nexus 9's design was intentionally confusing, a security measure to prevent exactly this kind of infiltration. But Tejo's team had studied the station's layout for months, identifying blind spots and maintenance corridors that weren't on public maps. Yuna made her way to a maintenance terminal in a quiet corner of the commercial district. With practiced ease, she bypassed the security and connected her devices to the station's systems. "I'm in," she reported, accessing internal security feeds now. On the other side of the station, Jin and two other team members created a small distraction, a minor altercation in a crowded market area that drew security personnel away from their posts. The remaining team members used the opportunity to slip into the restricted areas. Tejo moved through the diplomatic quarter, his appearance now matching that of a minor Confederate official. The corridors here were wider, more ornate, designed to impress visiting dignitaries. Security was tight but focused on the official entrances and main thoroughfares. "Commander," Yuna's voice came through his earpiece, "I've located our target. Level 42, Section C, Diplomatic Suite 17. He's not alone." Tejo changed direction, heading for a service elevator that would take him to the level above the target. "Who's with him?" "3 virile guards and a Confederate official. Looks like Undersecretary Mal of the Security Council." This was new information. If a Security Council member was personally protecting Dax, there was more to this situation than a simple mercenary killing. "Team, converge on my position," Tejo ordered. "We may need to adjust the plan." Meanwhile, across Confederate space, the shockwaves of Earth's invasion continued to spread. On the Confederacy's capital world of Actis Prime, representatives from member species gathered in an emergency session. "This is madness," shouted the representative from Nilar, a normally peaceful species known for their patience. "We are sacrificing our worlds, our people, to protect a single mercenary." High Minister Graal struggled to maintain order in the chamber. "The issue is not the mercenary, it is the principle. We cannot allow Earth to dictate terms through military force." "They are not dictating terms," the Nilarian countered. "They are asking for justice for their dead." "Is that so unreasonable?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Reports from conquered worlds had been surprising. Earth forces were maintaining order, treating civilians with respect, and focusing their military actions purely on Confederate military assets. This was not the uncontrolled rampage of a primitive species. It was a precisely targeted operation with clear objectives. "The humans have shown unexpected restraint," admitted the representative from Zolaris. "My people report that Earth soldiers have provided aid to civilians displaced by the fighting. They are behaving as liberators, not conquerors." "Propaganda," sputtered Grawl. "They seek to turn you against the Confederacy." "Perhaps," said the Solarian slowly, "we should consider their demand. 1 mercenary in exchange for peace." The chamber erupted in debate. For the first time in centuries, the Confederacy's unity was visibly fracturing. Back on Nexus 9, Tejo's team prepared to move. They had gathered in a maintenance corridor 1 level above the diplomatic suite where Dax was hiding. "Yuna, cut the power to this section in 30 seconds, Tejo ordered. "Jin, be ready with the breaching charges." "Commander," Yuna said suddenly, studying her datapad, I'm picking up increased communications traffic throughout the station. Something's happening. Tejo frowned. Explain. Multiple species representatives are contacting their homeworlds. There's some kind of political shift happening within the Confederacy. They're voting on whether to hand over Dax. This changed things. If the Confederacy was breaking ranks, a direct assault might no longer be necessary. But Tejo knew better than to trust in politics. We proceed as planned, he decided. If they want to hand him over, they can do it to us directly. The lights went out across the diplomatic quarter. Emergency systems kicked in, but there was a crucial 5-second delay, more than enough time for Tejo's team to move. They descended through an access panel, deployed sound dampeners, and breached the door to Suite 17 before the occupants could react. Inside, they found Dax and Undersecretary Mal arguing heatedly. "Cannot simply surrender me," Dax was saying. His grey skin flushed dark with anger. "I followed your orders exactly. My orders were to create a diplomatic incident, not to kill a researcher," Mal hissed back. "You've brought the full might of Earth down upon us." Both aliens froze as the human team entered, weapons raised. "Dax of the Verail," Tejo said calmly, "you are being taken into custody for the murder of Jisoo Park." The mercenary's hand moved toward a concealed weapon, but stopped when 5 targeting. Lasers instantly appeared on his chest. "Don't," advised Jin. "We're authorized to take you alive or dead, your choice." Dax slowly raised his forearms in surrender, but his eyes were fixed on Undersecretary Mal. "Tell them," he growled. "Tell them who ordered the incident at Haven Point." Mal backed away, his elongated features contorted with fear. "This mercenary is delusional. The Confederacy had nothing to do with—" "We have the recording," Tejo interrupted, gesturing to Yuna, who had already accessed the suite's computer systems. "Your conversation just now was quite illuminating." The team efficiently secured both prisoners. As they prepared to extract from the station, a message came through from Admiral Do-hyun himself. "Commander, the Confederacy Council has voted. They're offering to surrender Dax and anyone involved in ordering Jisoo's death. 7 species have already broken from the Confederacy alliance in protest over this incident." Tejo looked at the mercenary and the undersecretary. "It seems your friends have abandoned you," he told them. "But don't worry. Earth justice will give you something the Confederacy never offered Jisoo, a fair hearing." As they moved their prisoners through the now chaotic station, Tejo couldn't help but reflect on how quickly things had changed. The Confederacy had dismissed humans as insignificant for decades. Now their entire alliance was crumbling over the death of a single human girl. They had learned too late what Earth had always known, that the true measure of a civilization was not its technology or its military might, but how it valued the lives of its people, every single one of them. The UES Retribution hung in orbit above Earth, its massive hull gleaming in the sunlight. Inside the ship's main conference chamber, silence fell as Dax was led in, his forearms bound in specialized restraints. The gray-skinned mercenary seemed smaller somehow, less threatening than he had appeared in the security footage that showed him ending Jisoo Park's life with a casual pull of a trigger. Admiral Do-hyun sat at the center of the military council table, his face impassive as he studied the alien. Beside him sat General Sunmi, Commander Tai-ho, and representatives from Earth's unified government. A holorecorder floated nearby, documenting everything for the billions watching across Earth and beyond. "Dax of the Vral," Do-hyun began, his voice echoing in the chamber. "You stand accused of the murder of Jisoo Park, an unarmed civilian researcher. Do you deny this?" The mercenary's head spines flattened, a sign of submission in Vral body language. "I do not deny pulling the trigger," he said, his translator conveying his gravelly voice. "But I was following orders from Confederate High Command."